How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, host of Tier Talk, and today we're going to discuss 2017, a year in review. Now, what I'm going to talk about is not an all-inclusive list. I'm going to cover the incidences to me that hit home with me. And unfortunately, they're topics that really are tragic. We're going to talk about the riot in Delaware, the death of Sgt Meggan Callahan. I want to talk about the attempted escape in North Carolina that led to the death of 4 correctional staff members. I also want to talk about an escape from a prison transport that killed 2 of our officers, Billue and Chris Monica. And I also want to discuss briefly, right at the very beginning, a move that's being made in Michigan that I read about towards the end of October, beginning of November, that I believe just recently was finalized by the governor of Michigan. I believe the governor's name is Snyder, and where we're going to hire felons to work with us in corrections. And I want to talk about some concerns that the front line has brought to my attention, and hopefully somebody will listen to those concerns. So when we get back from commercial break, my sponsors will begin our discussion.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Being a corrections officer takes its toll on even the strongest individuals. The constant need to perform at the highest level, putting your life at risk in a hostile environment, and the mental scarring of traumatic experiences. 31% of corrections officers show symptoms of PTSD, and 66% of people with PTSD also suffer with a substance abuse problem. The Transformations First Responders program is specially designed to help veterans and officers heal from the grips of addiction and PTSD in a comfortable, supportive, and serene setting. You are not alone. If you have questions about the services we offer, give us a call at 866-762-8454 to get more information on this affordable and life-changing program.
Okay, welcome back. Okay, now, real quick, I want to go first to the state of Michigan. Now, this is an article I read towards the end of the year, somewhere between October to a couple of days ago. The article's kind of like continuing into this movement where you have the governor of Michigan, I believe his name is Snyder, and what he's doing is, I believe they just signed policy to pretty much state that we can hire felons into the correctional system. Now, believe it or not, this is not a new idea. There are some states that do have felons working in certain positions, but here's my concern, and I believe this kind of goes with the concern of our audience. First off, we have what they call the open door, right? Once you open the door, you got to wonder what else is going to wind up coming out, correct? Where are we going to wind up going? So in this case here, we get these felons into what looks like positions that are really non-threatening, but then again, where's that going to lead to eventually? Where is this person going to move up? Is this person maybe going to eventually land into a security position, a custodial position? Now, I know Michigan wants to lead by example, and right now in corrections, that's the thing, the transitional aspect of we got inmates coming out, we got to get them jobs, and we have to lead by example, which means that we can't expect society to give them jobs if we're not willing to get them jobs, and that's not really a good way of looking at things. We have reasons why we shouldn't be hiring them, and that basically deals with the safety of the facility, of staff, of those that reside within. You know, we're held to a higher standard. Now, the concern I got when I posted it up my board, and I'm just going to reiterate these concerns, is what are we going to do with them? Are they going to get moved up? Can they eventually take a security position? And when you know you're looking at background checks, what are you looking for? Because most likely in background checks, guess what? When you want to go into a law enforcement type position, because that's what corrections is, or involved in a law enforcement type position, working with us, we look at felonies. And that could be something that doesn't get you the job. So when you're doing background checks, what specifically are you looking for now that would deny them the job? So again, Governor Snyder, just an opinion of mine, I don't think it's a good idea. My followers also don't think it's a good idea. Again, because are we going to have the people that I trust, the people that I get, my brothers and sisters, eventually being in subordinate positions to former inmates who have received higher positions? Because let's be honest, man, everything's moving towards rehabilitation. Security is being pushed aside. So I could see someone coming in with a background, you know, that has committed felonies, gets themselves in a position and moves up a lot quicker than our security personnel, because rehabilitation has been a focus. You know, it's the focus right now, and unfortunately it's going on contested. So right now people got to realize it's safety balanced with rehabilitation. But rehabilitation never trumps safety and security. And right now the moves that are being made, especially in 2017, you could start to see that people are trying to do that. They're trying to literally put rehabilitation over everything else. Well, there is no rehabilitation without safety and security. And with all the focus on rehabilitation, there could be a good chance that you start this and you're going to have people that have felonies supervising officers who never had felonies. And that's going to be a problem. And that's something we should look into. Don't just open the door without realizing that there could be other stuff coming through. Now, at the very beginning of the year in February, we got hit with a tragedy. We got hit with an immediate wake-up call. Delaware, at the James T. Vaughn Correctional Facility, we had a riot. 4 people were taken hostage. Ultimately, 1 was killed, and that was Sgt Stephen Floyd, who was posthumously promoted to lieutenant. I had a chance actually to go out to Delaware, meet the family, meet an amazing individual by the name of Geoffrey. And these were individuals that realized that, you know what, we have to get the word out there. We have to let the public know the dangers of our job, but most importantly, we have to let the public know that this could have been prevented. And it was a time to do that because the death of Stephen Floyd brought national attention. I think the reason why it brought national attention is because what the inmates unfortunately were rioting over were technically in relation to what they said were limited programs, a bunch of issues. But that's probably what got the attention of the media, because you've had riots elsewhere that did not get the attention. That's because the inmates were outright wrong. In this case here, where there's just anything, it may be a little bit of a thing that says, hey, the inmates could be writing this, which obviously they weren't. They took a life. They should not have been supported in this. The media may use that as a way to push whatever political agenda that they want to push. But in this case here, this got national attention. Lieutenant Stephen Floyd was killed as a result of these inmates taking over that facility and then taking his life. 16 inmates would later be indicted for the murder of Lieutenant Stephen Floyd. 18 inmates charged ultimately, but 16 were indicted for murder charges on Lieutenant Stephen Floyd. But as mentioned, this could have been prevented. Jeff Klopp, I had him on my show a few times, and he mentioned that these concerns were brought to management multiple times. You know, concerns about how the inmates are classified, the gangs inside the unit, the understaffing, the poor equipment. I mean, the list goes on, and management knew about it. There's literally documents that prove that management knew about it. Lieutenant Stephen Floyd, before he was killed, brought attention to the situation by saying, hey, I got an inmate in my unit, I got to get him out. I think he's a danger, I think he's a threat. And then you're getting responses almost similar to like, hey, put on your big boy pants and deal with it. Well, guess what? He told you what was going on and you ignored him. And the funny thing is when this occurred and management chose to ignore him, let me tell you something. That COAD, the Correctional Officer Association of Delaware, Jeff Klopp and his support crew, including George McClure, who I kind of dealt with a lot, they made it known. They put it out there. And when management was backed in a corner and they couldn't say that they didn't know, what did they say? Pretty much, we're not responsible for the safety of the people that work inside the correctional facility. Basically, we knew what we signed up for. And let me tell you something right off the bat. There's always that animosity for some reason between frontline and management, because there's an idea that frontline believes that management doesn't care. And when you say stuff like that, that confirms to them that, guess what? You don't care. To me, that was a disgusting excuse to minimize or negate your responsibility in the riot and the ultimate death of Lieutenant Stephen Floyd. I actually did a show with Gary York, and we discussed this. We discussed the role of management and how management ignored the signs, which could have been prevented. The signs that could have prevented the riot and the death of Lieutenant Stephen Floyd, and we were disgusted. And we focused on that statement by management, how management was backed in a corner and they utilized that statement. This riot in Delaware could have been prevented. But out of the tragedy, there was a bit of a light. This got national attention. And as you started reading articles afterwards that, came out, after the riot, you started seeing that other states were stepping up, saying, hey, you know what? This could happen to us. We're understaffed. We don't have the right equipment. Our equipment is poor. You know what I mean? Inmates are classified all over the place here. There is no good classification system. So you started seeing people bring out their concerns, especially frontline employees, and then people started asking questions. Especially there's a reporter out in North Carolina, and he writes for the Charlotte Observer, and they've been following incidences that have been happening in North Carolina. And North Carolina, they got hit hard this year. They got hit hard this year. Started in April with the death of Sgt Meggan Callahan. Sgt Meggan Callahan was the victim of a setup that used her impulse to respond, because she's a first responder, she's a hero, she's a law enforcement professional. Fire on the dorm, she goes to put out the fire with an extinguisher. Inmate set her up, takes the extinguisher, beats her to death with it, and also in the process threw hot boiling water on her. She died a horrific death. Horrific death. But the public needs to know that she was a hero. She went in there with the intent to save lives, and that son of a bitch killed her. He set her up, and he killed her. That should have gotten more national attention. Remains from the Charlotte Observer. He made people aware of what was going on at that Bertie Correctional Facility, because what was going on at Bertie Correctional Facility could easily be seen at other facilities, not just in North Carolina, but elsewhere. Because believe it or not, the concerns that were mentioned are not just local concerns, they're concerns on a greater level. She was understaffed. She had people that weren't properly trained to run in there with her. The amount of people she had to go in wasn't there, so people were like, oh, well, maybe she violated policy. Who was she going to wait for? Nobody was coming. There was nobody there. And that's another thing. You read these articles about these heroes that are fallen, especially females, because I wound up doing a video about female correctional officers, and people who are far removed from the system, don't really understand how the system works. They go to question the importance of females. They don't know. But the question is, why you're questioning the importance of a female, like a hero, like Meggan Callahan, wondering why she's working in a male facility, or trying to blame her for going against policy. Well, let me tell you something right now. You're removing the responsibility from the son of a bitch that killed her. And neither one of the answers that you would have got from your concerns, in my opinion, and I'm sure in the opinion of frontline staff, does not suffice to the murder of a hero. We need to start holding these people responsible and stop blaming staff. She was killed trying to save lives, and the messages on the board were disgusting. There was hardly anybody besides us, besides the family, concerned. Everybody else was talking about female importance in male facilities, and maybe she broke policy. She was murdered by an inmate. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on the reasons. How was she murdered? What happened? So we can make change so this doesn't happen again. But North Carolina was hit again. This time at the Pasquotank facility in North Carolina. 4 of their staff members were killed, this time in an attempted escape. Justin Smith, Veronica Darden, Wendy Shannon, Geoffrey. These were all correctional staff members that were killed during an attempted prison escape at that facility in North Carolina. So again, going back to my buddy for the Charlotte Observer, he goes to mention, well, and it's a great question, were there concerns that arose from the death of Meggan Callahan ever addressed? And the feedback from the front line was, nope, they weren't addressed. So now, asking the front line, well, can we ask you if those concerns were addressed, the understaffing, the equipment, whatever the case may be, if those concerns were addressed, especially the understaffing, that's always the key right now. That's a big concern in 2017 is understaffed facilities. Could this have been prevented? And they said yes. They also had classification issues in regards to who was able to work the sewing plant. And eventually what they did was they wind up closing the sewing plant permanently. I believe the facility is still on lockdown as of recording this. And now they're making the changes. But again, asking Frontline, could this have been prevented? Of course they said yes. And again, I would have to agree. So you had deaths now that could have been prevented. And in 2017, all I'm asking was, where was the communication? But again, the word's starting to get out there. People are starting to listen. Now, I want to bring us back to June real quick in Georgia. 2 other officers were killed, Curtis Billue and Chris Monica. These 2 officers were killed on a transport. A lot of questions, unfortunately, left unanswered on this, like the proper equipment, like a vest, and most importantly, where was the chase vehicle? You always have a chase vehicle, especially when they were moving that amount of inmates. But these inmates were able to break out of a locked area and shoot both the officers dead, go on escape. Eventually, they were caught. And obviously, hopefully, again, this is why I believe in the death penalty. It's the death penalty that's going to protect us in the line of duty that we work and what we do and what we got to get done. So, right now, death penalty in 2017 is definitely under question. A lot of states are looking to get rid of it. They're questioning the method, but ultimately they're just questioning the system. The method is the method. How about you look to help us improve the method instead of questioning the method if you have problems? A case right now, when everybody talks about the criminal justice system, it's broken, let's throw it away. No. If you believe it's broken, how do we fix it? Is the system that's needed. But these 2 brave warriors were killed. Georgia, again, they lost 2. So again, could these things been prevented? And my concern is yes. Because these are things that we should be made aware of. If anybody in management does a lot of reading, and you see what's happening, you read Corrections 1 and you read these articles, or whatever, you read stuff that comes across your local or your national news feed, whatever you tend to go to, and you read stuff about corrections, we can learn from these things. Because whatever happens at other facilities can happen at our facilities. So we have to be able to learn. When we found out about these understaffed concerns, especially when we got hit with Delaware, we're already trying to make changes at our facilities. Because we don't want it to happen to us. We want to be proactive and preventive. So that requires us going to the front line. Because I think in 2017, we still didn't get that communication between management and front line, but I do believe that it's starting to open up now. I really do. I think 2018 is going to be a little something different, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But I really do think that 2018 is going to help encourage that communication. Even with the riot or the attempted escape in North Carolina, or the 4 correctional staff members that were killed, we went back and made some changes, because that's what you do. That's what you need to do. You need to take what you can, learn, so it doesn't happen at your facility. Because at one point, you don't have an excuse. Because you can't say you did not know. That's why stories like this have to get national attention. They have to get national attention first for the public to understand the dangers of the job. And then also, so we can know what's going on. So if we have to make adjustments, we can. I mean, Rikers Island is under attack, looking to get it out in 10 years and all this other junk. But those officers are getting attacked left and right in Rikers. Left and right. And with people pushing to get rid of solitary confinement and advertising it as such, very primitive, they don't really understand the evolution of where solitary confinement's at, more of like administrative segregation or restrictive housing. They do get what they're supposed to get. They do get their needs. They get programmed. They get out of their cells. We explained this multiple times before. But these officers are getting attacked left and right, but there's nothing to do with the inmate that attacks them, that poses a threat to them. So these officers wind up having to work with that inmate, because the inmate's going to go right back through the system again and wind up right back in that unit. So officer just got attacked. Now you're going to put him right next to the person that attacked him. Who's protecting frontline? Who's protecting frontline? And also, again, we also talked about the importance of critical incident stress management teams. We are losing a lot of officers here. A lot of officers are killing themselves because of the stress of the jobs. We have to help them deal with those stressors because they can't escape from those stressors. Imagine being in North Carolina or in Delaware where you lost members, your family, you lost them behind the wall. Then you got to go back into that environment. You can't escape it. You can't avoid it. I know police, sometimes they can go to another district. We can't do that. We got to go right in there. So how do we process that? How do we adjust to that? And that's conversations that are going on like right now. I know that for a fact. Those conversations are happening right now. And they need to happen. We need peer-to-peer support. We need management to get peer-to-peer support. If an incident happens, a critical incident, we need management to get that support team out there, have them talk to staff, give them a chance to debrief so we can alleviate the tension that's happening inside those facilities. Imagine if I worked in North Carolina and, as I said, we had 4 of my staff members, 4 of my family members killed. I'm going back to work. There's going to be animosity there between us and those inmates. It's generalized animosity. It's just that, hey, inmates are locked down. Hey, I didn't do nothing wrong. Why are we locked down? And staff may just hate all inmates. And it's a lot, it makes sense because they have generalized hatred. So what does management do to alleviate that tension? They have to give these professionals a chance to debrief, because I'll tell you something right now, if there was a critical incident that happened to those inmates, you would have mental health all over that. You would have them talking to those inmates. But who's talking to staff? Who's helping staff? That's the key. And hopefully in 2018, we start to see those changes. Now, again, in 2018, I'm working with the NJACA, and we're talking about cross-perspective training. We're talking about, let's show everybody that we're collective. We have one goal. It's eclectic. We all got to work together to get to that goal. But sometimes we don't understand what it is that each department does in order to get to that goal. And sometimes we wind up being in conflict with 2 departments that don't realize that they have the same goal, but unfortunately they're arguing about the road that they need to take to get there. And then unfortunately when they're going at it, management has to come up, and if these 2 department heads can't make a decision who are the real expert, management has to pretty much make a catch-22. And that decision is going to be based on who presents the best argument. So I really do believe that we need to unify ourselves. And that unification will manifest its way out, and then we'll be in a better position to, literally get our voices out, get our concerns out. Because we have to be one first. And we have to be united on what we need. And if we're not united on what we need, we can't expect the public to sit there and say, hey, we're there for you. Well, no, because we're divided. If we're divided amongst ourselves, who's going to help us? Who's going to help us? Also, I believe 2018, I started seeing at the end of 2017, and I know we're pushing it. I'm on the executive board of the NJACA, so we're pushing communication. Communication is a must. Without communication, we get nowhere. We are a team. We don't succeed in isolation, and we don't fail in isolation. We work together for the common good of the agency, and we need to communicate. If you look at what happened during the riots, the Delaware incident, the attempted escape and the death of the 4 staff members, you're looking at things that could have been prevented because these issues were brought up, but the door was shut. So communication is a major thing that has to happen in 2018, but I believe you're starting to see something in 2017, because I've been reading a lot of articles about getting staff, dealing with that understaffed issue, and how do we get more staff. And people are going to the front line saying, what do you need? What will invite more staff? What will keep more experienced staff? And obviously it's the paying the benefits. But we also don't want to be hired out of desperation like what they're doing in Michigan. You can't just get to a point where you don't have the numbers, and now it's more about quantity over quality. We need people that we can trust. Frontline needs to trust the people that you're putting next to them. And that doesn't happen when you're hiring out of desperation. These people have to be filtered, and there should be no forgiveness on that background check, because you're putting them in a secure position. My life is dependent on them. My life is dependent on them. If I'm going to walk with them, the last thing I want to understand, the last thing I want from you guys is to tell me that, you were sort of forgiving on their background check. Because if I get hurt or if I get killed, my family's going to be all over you. My family's going to be all over you. Trust and believe that, because I tell my family everything. It just is what it is. Because at the end of the day, that's who's going to wind up protecting me. So again, this was just a real quick little review. It's my last episode for the season for the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Again, guys, you could follow us on YouTube. Keep the channel growing. It's a venue for us. You have concerns, come on the show. I'm out in Jersey, or I'll come to you. We're working together to get a voice out for you guys. Also, I partnered up with Transformations. It's a drug treatment center out in Florida. It's by Delray Beach. and they actually have a great program for first responders that have obviously fell victim to addiction. And it's a great program. They understand our needs. They also have it where we can be with groups, or we can be isolated from the groups, and we can work with just us. And they also help us deal with the myths that would stop us from getting help. So again, these were just regular concerns I wanted to bring up. 2017, this is what happened. Hopefully 2018 will be a little bit different. And as always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. Thank you for what you do. I hope you have a great holiday, a great new year. And 2018, I promise you, is going to be the year that you brave men and women who work behind that wall in all capacities get the respect you deserve. It's time for your voice to be heard.